Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report powered by ANC.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. The ANC spokesperson, Mahlengi Bhengu, just said that if the ANC was corrupt, we'd not be poor. She tried to claim that amid all of the ANC's financial difficulties, you may be aware of the fact that ANC employees protested in the last little while because they haven't been paid in months until recently. Mahlengi Bhengu tried to tell us that the ANC as an organization is poor, and it is partially poor because it is not corrupt. There are just some individuals within the party who are corrupt. And that has upset me a great deal because the ANC might be lacking in money on paper and not be paying its employees on paper, but the ANC is absolutely flush with money, just in deeply corrupt ways that the ANC would rather we not talk about it. So today on the Quarter Report, we're going to explain to you how the ANC actually has tons of money, and it's not just in the president's couch at Phala Phala. The ANC has tons of money. It's just not declared on the books, and therefore they look like an organization lacking in money and being threatened by bankruptcy. And that's just because the money that they have and that they spend, or at least that they have spent on their behalf, does not end up on official balance sheets. We also need to talk about the fact that Gwede Mantashe just came out and said that he is old and getting ready to retire, and so he's ruled himself out as a potential future president of the African National Congress. And we need to talk about why Witness D may have turned down state witness protection from the Madlanga Commission. We've got phenomenal new merch for festive season, www.3beaniesnetwork.com. If you're on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. And WhatsApp channel, follow us there, 3 Beanies Network, W/Dan Quarter, and also save the number 0607-613-436. That's the number of the WhatsApp line, although we do sometimes do YouTube comments and even Spotify comments sometimes. So, the ANC has not paid its workers in a long time, and I'm talking about people who work at Luthuli House, administrators and that. The sheriff, I don't know if you knew that, but South Africa has sheriffs, not cowboy western sheriffs, but many cities and towns have sheriffs. And the sheriff, a little while ago, did not get shot, but the sheriff did shoot his shot at Luthuli House by going to Luthuli House to basically audit all of the assets that the ANC has there. I'm talking like tables, chairs, and water coolers and posters, in case they needed to seize all of that to get money back that's owed to them in a potential bankruptcy scenario. At the same time, we know that the biggest top members of the ANC are fabulously wealthy, and we know that corruption is rife within the African National Congress, has been for decades. Let me remind you again about state capture, but even before then. So the ANC is having its National General Council in Boksburg. Don't know why. Nothing against Boksburg. I'm just saying the ANC could have gone to any number of historically iconic ANC lore places in the country. I'm not sure if Boksburg is on that list.
Didn't you literally say the other day on the show, why does everything keep happening in Boksburg?
Eric, you're about to be cancelled because although they are similar, Brakpan and Boksburg.
You're right. Damn. Okay, you see, I got my B names confused.
Tricky. So they're having the National General Council in Boksburg, and Mahlengi Bhengu said, if the ANC was a corrupt party, not individuals, the ANC is an organization. If it was a corrupt party, we would not be poor. We'd be tapping into the resources of the state as a governing party. We can't access resources of the state because it will be fraud, it will be illegal. We have to work with what is applicable, and that is what we're doing. She went on to say, I stress, we've seen a number of political parties, they come into power, they grow their headquarters, they grow everything because they can access resources of the state. So, that was a borderline offensive gaslighting of the true state of the nation. And by that I mean the state of the ANC nation. Because let's talk about on the books and off the books about the way that the ANC makes its money. And I'm actually quickly going to flag a WhatsApp that we got in from Colin saying, hi guys, please can you address the financial issues at Luthuli House? Is the ANC in trouble? According to Ronaldo Ghost, all right, Colin. There are sources and then there are sources. Some of them are news sources. Some of them are like Thousand Island and you get them at Spur. Anyway, according to the likes of Ronaldo Ghost, they are bankrolled by Iran, Hamas, and the Galactic Empire. So, of course, I'm quite confused. Colin, we're going to talk about that. Okay, let's talk about how the ANC actually pays its bills. Because Yes, the ANC doesn't do that classic on-the-books defrauding and corruption of the state. They don't largely, although there have been some instances where it's looked a bit weird, like there have been state-sponsored Department of Health events that weirdly become very pro-ANC-like in tenor and character at those rallies or at those activations. But broadly, the ANC doesn't do the classic corrupt thing, the vintage, shall we say, corrupt thing of take state money, directly spend it on the ANC to, say, pay their workers or launch events or whatever. The ANC broadly on the books, as in declared and in financial records, gets money from donors, and they use that money to pay for a raft of things. Infamously, they misuse that money or don't budget properly, and then they don't actually pay their actual rank and file employees like secretaries, administrators, cleaners, everyday clerks at Literally House, amongst other places, properly. But as we have learned, particularly from Katmatlala and the Madlanga Commission and the Mkhwanazi Cinematic Universe, the ANC is flush with money. It's just off the books. Let's take Katmatlala, Brown Makhotsi, and the rest as an example, right? Assuming all those allegations are true, and I'm pretty sure at this point they are, because Katmatlala and Brown Makhotsi and others have confirmed that they are true and those WhatsApps are real. The way that it works is somebody says that they will pay the costs of specific ANC events or for specific ANC people on request. So they'll buy flights for people. They will send spending money to pay for food. They will provide catering and accommodation. And in the case of Katmatala, actually at the EMPD, free car usage services, right? So that's for the EMPD, but you can imagine this happening for ANC events too. Free protection services and the rest, right? So the ANC is getting resources, getting flights, getting funding, getting money, but not through legally declared on-the-books channels. And in exchange, more often than not, the people who provide these free, lovely blessings, including in some cases direct money to ANC members and officials like Becky Cele, like people like Becky Cele, is that those people then win state contracts. So they win the state contracts. They win the tenders. Now, I'm not saying for sure that they're winning them through direct corruption, but that seems to be the overwhelming trend. Is the people who give money to the ANC off the record by buying flights and cake and paying for events and, sending monies to bank accounts. They then win state contracts, which means they get state money. So, sure, the money is not directly on the books going from the state to the ANC, but it's going to people who then spend money on the ANC and its people. So it's deeply offensive for this spokesperson, Mahlengi Bhengu, to say, the ANC is not corrupt, because if we were corrupt, we wouldn't be poor. You're on the books poor because you actually, as an organization, do not care about paying your employees on time. But in reality, you are flush with money, because how else would the ANC still be running the biggest political ground game in the country come elections? They're not just not paying suppliers for posters, although that is happening in KZN right now, and there's a court case about that. The ANC is using shady, undeclared financial moves in different directions that often end up in the people providing the ANC cash and other resources getting state-funded contracts blessings. That's illegal. That's criminal. That's what a lot of this Katmatlala, Mkhwanazi Cinematic Universe, Big Five Drug Cartel stuff is literally about. But it is frankly offensive not just to South Africa with the level of the gaslighting, but to the ANC employees who are not getting paid while the ANC is receiving and spending billions and billions and billions of rands, and billions of rands worth of blessings are ending in the pockets of ANC officials and funding and enabling ANC events. It's deeply offensive to tell those employees, oh no, we're actually poor though, we're not corrupt at all. Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. And as far as there are individuals in the ANC that are corrupt, but not the whole organization. Again, the whole organization wins votes because of its huge ground game and its blessings that it gives to some communities in exchange for votes. How is that funded? It's not by the public donations that we see to the ANC that they declare, nor from the same coffers that are barely able to keep the ANC out of technical legal bankruptcy and to pay its staff. Now let's go to Colin quickly, because Colin, he was being tongue-in-cheek because he did say the galactic empire at the end, but there's this conspiracy theory, and it is a conspiracy theory up until this point, and I'll tell you why, because there is no evidence whatsoever of this. But there's this conspiracy theory that not Hamas, because Hamas doesn't have the money, but Iran on behalf of alleged evil Muslim Arab interests around the world, and just watch the Islamophobia. It's actually extraordinary. But there's this conspiracy theory that Iran is funding South Africa because the ANC was bankrupt, and then suddenly they could fund an expensive case to the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. Now, that is so rankly stupid that it's hard for me to talk about without being rude. But the people who say that are either deeply mentally challenged or they are pretending to be to mislead people. Those are the only two realities here. Because, one, there is no evidence. If you bring me evidence, then sure, I will completely change my tune. But there is evidence. We choose facts over fantasies on this show, and there is evidence. And more than that, there is a deeply reasonable explanation for how that ICJ case was paid for. Do you know why? Because it wasn't an ANC-funded case. It was the Department of Justice, who are famously not bankrupt. And they pay those lawyers and those prosecutors, and they paid for that to happen. It's got nothing to do with the ANC's finances. Like, the best reasonable explanation is the facts that our Department of Justice had the money to do that, and they chose to do that. Also, DIRCO has the money to do that. There are a raft of departments that are relevant to do that. That's where the money came from. We know that's where the money came from. Iran had to fund it because the ANC had no money is ludicrous. Now, there are lots of very, very weird things happening between the South African government and Iran. There was that weird moment where that high-ranking member of the army went to Iran and said some political stuff. There is that stuff happening, and we should scrutinize it. But in the absence of any factual evidence that there is money flowing from Iran to the ANC, and the fact that the argument that the ICJ case only happened because Iran had to fund it because the ANC was bankrupt is frankly dumb, my guys. It's really dumb. And the fact that we know that the ICJ case was funded by the Justice Department. That's what happened. It's as simple as that. And if you're wondering how the ANC spends all this money and yet is technically bankrupt, I just explained it to you. That is actually what is happening. Real world what is happening. So these morons who are like, the ANC is bankrupt. How could they possibly pay for the ICJ case? They must be funded by Iran, who at the same time say the ANC corrupt and has so much money because they're corrupt. Which one is it, bro? Are they poor or are they rich? Are they bankrupt or are they actually off the record, off the books, flush with money? You have to pick to run both, like either of your arguments, because they're not working together.
I think that's probably the most important thing about this. And even going back to the quote you read out at the beginning of this, right, is I feel like a lot of people, myself included, actually, when I first read the quote, and I had to just quite check myself a second later, because it was one of those things where I feel like people misconstrue when people talk about the ANC's money and the state's money.
Right.
And I think they conflate that a lot. Because even me, when I read that initially, I was like, but hold on, because of corruption and some of those members were in the ANC in the past and then fleeced the state. But then I was like, no, hold on, but we're talking about two different bank accounts, basically, right? We're talking about the ANC's funds and the state funds.
Exactly.
And the same thing happens with the ICJ case.
Okay, let's quickly talk about Gwede Mantashe. He's really interesting. So yesterday we spoke about Toko Didiza and about Hussein Soramokgopa potentially being the Ramaphosa ticket for continuity after Ramaphosa to lead the ANC and maybe the country, depending on how they do in 2029. And one thing that we've always kept in the back of our heads is Gwede Mantashe, who always ends up on the right side, the winning side, much like Fikile Mbalula. And according to some rumors, has always harbored presidential ambitions. It's very significant that yesterday he said that he is old and retiring and he doesn't want to and he's not available for a 2027 bid. That's not saying he won't do it, though, because a lot of people, and there's an ANC culture of saying, nah, I'm not going to do it. And then, oh, they persuaded me and I'll just do what the branches say and for the best of the party, and it's the party's will over my own. People have done that many times. Remember Panyaza Lesufi, who somehow in the same week said that he was retiring from politics in 2027, but also maybe he'd run for president? Like, well, he didn't say exactly that, but he said, like, if the branches, like, if I'm called, like, this is my duty. This is what the ANC is about. So it's interesting that Gwede Mantashe said that, particularly because he's such a power broker. And also, if he is retiring in 2027, he's no longer going to be the Minister of Resources and Energy and, land, not land stuff, but like mineral resources and energy. And considering how very pushback he has been towards green energy and just energy transition, how pro-coal he has been, and his general philosophy about how we power South Africa in the modern world. If he were no longer that's interesting, because the lobbyists for coal and for dirty power have been incredibly happy with Gwede Mantashe for a very, very long time. So that's an interesting thing to flag if he has truly decided that he's not going to be in politics anymore come 2027. Okay. Now let's talk about Marius van der Merwe, Witness D. Something that I think a lot of people haven't thought about enough since he was murdered is, why did he turn down state protection? We've talked a lot about what it means for other witnesses who may be now too scared to come forward. But this wasn't a story of van der Merwe being failed by the implementation of state witness protection to protect him. But I think beyond just him having a security company, there must have been potentially other reasons why he would turn down state witness protection. But you know who really has some theories? AI Eric Mulder. Sorry, Mulder. Because I always drop the R at the end.
It's Mulder.
Mulder.
My favorite thing of that TV piece is actually how, in very quick succession, you get about 3 different ways of pronouncing my surname, and one of them was by me. But it's interesting also. You mentioned the other witnesses that have testified and probably will testify again at some point, especially after the commission concludes, most likely, or at least they all all of this still needs to go to a submission of evidence for any actual court cases happening later on, right?
Trial.
So, yeah, trial. And I think witness C was classified as protected in an article recently. So I assume that person has witness protection, whereas witness D obviously didn't. And I think that it must be a very difficult decision to make. And I actually don't know if I was in that situation. I don't know if I would take it or not.
Why?
Because if you're at the point where, as all the articles claim, right, there's rot all the way up in the police and security forces and whatever, why would you take protection from those people?
Because the chances of them being compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least your whereabouts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I hear you.
And obviously we don't know the ins and outs of how this process works, right? I'm sure there are very, very few people in a witness protection case, scenario, who actually know where you are.
Yeah.
But the problem is that people know where you are.
Totally.
And so if you're there, I don't know what if I would say yes or no. Maybe it was just a case of I can take care of myself. But at the same time, there could be a lot more thought that goes into it.
Yeah, it could be that he was everyone knows where I live anyway. They'll find that out. I don't want police on my property. I want my guys on my properties, my security company guys.
Yeah.
That's true.
But it's tricky because you'd argue, with a witness protection program, you would have a different location, hopefully undisclosed, right? And you'd be under constant surveillance by the people that are meant to be protecting you.
Yeah, but he wanted to continue his normal life. That's the difference.
Which is a wild thing to do considering the allegations.
Because witnesses A and B are
undisclosed.
We don't know where they are.
Completely. C as well, right?
And you can understand why they did that.
Although we do know, I think that witness C is a member of the PKTT.
Yeah, and A and B were a member of this elite task force investigating Katie Molefe amongst others.
Which I already feel like is too much information.
Totally.
I don't know how big the PKTT is. But if someone isn't at work, not that they're okay, they're disbanded, sure, but, where's this person?
So that was the confusion, is that, in the case of Marius van der Merwe, he knew the whole time that Julius Mkhwanazi them knew exactly who Witness D was. He knew. They all knew that it was him. It could only possibly have been him. And in the case of witnesses A and B, it could probably also only possibly have been them. And so I'm sure the elite and the hawks who have allegations against them now from witness A and B, people like Godfrey Lebert, know exactly who those people are. But then the question is why are they, so some of them, you couldn't see any of their faces. Some of their voices were hidden. They were all from undisclosed locations. You can understand in the moment of testifying, that makes them safer because no one knows where they're broadcasting from, so they can't walk into that location and stop you from doing your testimony. But before and after, I don't know if it makes you safer. And so it's been a really interesting dynamic of this. And I totally agree with you, man. It would be a really, really hard decision because what comes to mind is everyone just assumed that General Mkhwanazi would be killed. But he's got a legion of loyal forces with him, PKTT and the rest. And also, he immediately became so famous as to, in a way, be untouchable. Like, although Dumisani Kumalo got sick, mysteriously got sick for a long time and couldn't testify for a while, the day after his first testimony. But General Mkhwanazi has been safe so far. There have probably been threats on his life, but like he's got loyal people who've been around him and protecting him. I don't know if that's true for the witnesses. And the more people you need to protect, the fewer. Let's just assume there are good cops and bad cops. But like the good, let's just assume Mkhwanazi's guys want the witnesses to survive. The more witnesses you need to protect, the fewer cops you have left who you can rely on to be faithful and good and on your side to protect more and more witnesses.